It's finally time to review Mothership First Edition. This is just part 1 though. In this first part, we're going to be reviewing both of the player rulebooks. We have the actual player survival guide and the Shipbreaker's toolbox. So let's dive in. Now, before we get into the right and proper of the review, I wanted to show what actually came inside of the box. So we actually get some dice. There's a d20 for panic checks and a percentile dice. We have some standees for the tokens that we get, which are actually pretty nice. These are some of the artwork for another bug hunt, which we'll get into later. We have ourselves a little bit of a GM screen, and by little I mean it's like really small, like width-wise or height-wise, it's really small, and it's got one of the most bizarre pieces of artwork that I've ever seen. Yeah, try figuring out what that is. And then we've got a map that's actually a battle map for ships. So you have things like your beyond range, detection range, firing range, and contact range. And then on the back we have a map of some sort of a ship, which is actually pretty cool. It's also got some of the stats, or rather the costs for travel. I can't remember off the top of my head what this is for, but it's the BAS Lehman Contessa. Oh, that's the ship from another bug hunt, if I'm not mistaken. In addition to that, I got a storage box with my Kickstarter, which it just has stuff for all of my extra books that I need, like, The Cleaning of Prison Station Echo. We'll get to you someday, my friend. But I use it to keep all of my other booklets, like Dead Planet. Let's see, I got A Pound of Flesh in there, Gradient Descent. Yeah, so all of these extra books that I've been collecting over the years, they're going to fit nicely in here. It's a bit of a snug fit, if I'm being honest, but it still fits and it still closes. So now let's turn to the player survival guide. And so here we have the Mothership Sci-Fi Horror RPG. This is the player survival guide by Tuesday Night Games, written by Sean McCoy, and this is the first edition, so the copyright date is 2023. Now, Mothership is a sci-fi role-playing game with horror aspects built in. So if you think of the Alien franchise, but with a lot more freedom to create whatever you want, then you're thinking the right thoughts. The player survival guide has character creation and how to play baked into it. Ships have been taken completely out of this book, but worry not, because I'll be covering Shipbreaker's Toolkit right after this book. Aside from that, what else is different between the old edition and this first edition? Well, the book has been rearranged a little bit. Some of the rules are expanded, such as contractors and armor. Oh boy, armor finally got an upgrade. The player's cheat sheet at the end of the book has been simplified, and the table of contents is now gone. That's a sad face. For now, let's talk about character creation. I would classify character creation for this game as being easy in its complexity. Pretty much everything you need is on the character sheet itself. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Mothership has the best character sheet, hands down, because it's easy to follow, and you can do most of it with just a D100. The only time you'll need to open the book is to roll for gear. First thing you're going to do when you're creating a character is you're going to roll for stats. Simply roll a D100 and add 25. But watch out, you'll be changing one of these stats when you choose a class. There are 4 different stats in the game. We have strength, speed, intellect, and combat. Strength represents actions such as holding airlocks closed, carrying fallen comrades, climbing, pushing, and jumping. Speed can involve getting out of the cargo bay before the blast doors close, acting before someone or something, and running away. Intellect represents higher order thinking, such as recalling your training and experience while under duress, thinking through a difficult problem, and inventing or fixing things. And combat is, well, fighting for your life. Then you're going to roll for saves. Once again, you'll roll a D100, but this time you're going to add 10 to the score. Again, depending on your class, these numbers may change. There are 3 saves. Sanity allows you to rationalize logical inconsistencies in the universe, make sense out of chaos, detect illusions and mimicry, and cope with stress. Fear allows you to maintain a level head while struggling with fear, loneliness, depression, and other emotional surges. Body allows you to employ quick reflexes and resist hunger, disease, or organisms that might try and invade your insides. In the third step, you'll actually choose your class, and there are four. Marines are good at combat. Androids are super smart and are very hard to scare off. The scientists are kind of average if I'm being honest because of the androids, but at least they're pretty good on sanity saves. The Teamster is like your jack of all trades kind of guy. They are really good at fixing things. They can be whoever you want them to be, basically. Each class has a different trauma response, something that happens when you make a certain save or panic. For the Marine, whenever you panic, every close friendly player must make a fear save. Androids have fear saves made by close friendly players are at disadvantage. For the Scientist, whenever you fail a sanity save, all close friendly players gain 1 stress. And the Teamster, once per session, you may take advantage on a panic check. There are a ton of skills to choose from, and they are categorized into 3 tiers. You have trained skills, expert skills, and master skills. Trained skills give you a plus 10 to a stat when you use that skill. Expert skills give you plus 15, and master skills give you plus 20. Your class will tell you how many skills you get to choose or which ones you get to choose. Finally, you get to roll or choose your gear. Each of the classes has a loadout table that you'll roll on, and then you get to roll for your trinket and patches. There's quite a bit of weapons to choose from. On one side, you actually have firearms, and on the other side, you have industrial equipment, which, let's be honest, anything that's pointy or sharp can be used as a weapon. There's only 5 pieces of armor, so you have your standard crew attire, vac suit, hazard suit, standard battle dress, and the almighty advanced battle dress. Each one has its own perks, except for the standard crew attire. To play the game, you'll need a D100 and a D20, but mostly a D100. All stat checks and saves use the D100. If you do something that requires a check, you'll use one of your stats. If you have a skill that is applicable, then you'll add the skill bonus. Remember, 10, 15, or 20. In order to succeed, you need to roll under your stat. The same goes for saves. If you fail a roll, you do gain 1 stress, and a roll of 90 through 99 is always a failure. You can get advantage and disadvantage. Advantage is when you roll twice and take the best result, while disadvantage is when you roll twice but take the worst result. Whenever you roll doubles, you get a critical. If you succeed on the check in this instance, you gain a critical success, but if you fail at the roll, then it is a critical failure. If you get a critical failure, not only does something really bad happen, but you also make a panic check. When you're required to make a panic check, you roll a d20 and attempt to roll greater than your stress. If you roll equal to or under your current stress, you fail, and you have to look up the result on the panic table. You must make a panic check anytime you roll a critical failure on a stat check or save. Additionally, the warden may call for a panic check at any other appropriate time, including but not limited to watching another crew member die, witnessing more than one crew member panic at the same time. Whenever your ship rolls a critical failure, everyone on board makes a panic check, encountering a strange and horrifying entity for the first time, when all hope is lost and death feels certain, and or whenever you, the player, want. Things can often get ugly out here in space. Combat is best avoided, but if it does happen, you're going to have to figure out how the turn order works. There are 2 ways to determine initiative. First is that you can go around the table and the warden asks each character what they are doing. Rolls are done at the end of the round at the same time. The second way is to do a strict order where everyone makes a speed check. If you succeed, you go before the enemy. If you fail, you go after them. Health works a little bit different in this edition. You actually have a lot more health, in a way. You actually have wounds, so if your health drops down to 0, provided you still have wounds left, you gain a wound. You'll roll a d10 on the wounds table and see what happens, and they're broken down into different categories, such as blunt force, bleeding, gunshot, fire and explosives, gore, and massive damage. If you've been injured, then you'll need some time to recover. Once per day, whenever resting, a character's body attempts to heal itself naturally. After 6+ hours of rest, make a body save. If successful, reset health to its maximum. Wounds, however, remain the same. Then we have long-term recovery. Recovering wounds, conditions, or losses to stats and saves takes a longer time. And so you'll need to consult the medical expenses table for a non-comprehensive list of available treatments, such as an artificial wellness counselor, a cognitive defragmentation, deep tissue nanogel massage, immersive slick sim therapy, pseudo-flesh injection, and psychosurgery, which all of this stuff costs a ton of money. So yeah, don't get hit. If your death seems imminent, make your last movements count. Save someone's life, solve an important mystery, give the others time to escape. When you die, the warden makes a death save by placing a D10 in a cup, shaking the cup, and placing it face down on the table, covering the die. As soon as someone spends a turn checking your vitals, the die is revealed and the roll is looked up on the death table below. Use common sense. I absolutely don't like this at all. You can get some protection from injury, though, in the form of armor and cover. If your character is wearing armor, it most likely has armor points. Characters ignore all damage less than their armor's AP. However, if they ever take damage greater than or equal to their AP in one hit, their armor is destroyed and they suffer any remaining damage. Weapons with anti-armor ignore and destroy armor whenever they hit. Some armor may have damage reduction, which always reduces incoming damage by the amount stated, even if the armor is destroyed or if the weapon has anti-armor. Damage reduction occurs first before any armor. Likewise, you can get behind cover. It can be destroyed just like armor whenever it is dealt damage greater than or equal to its AP. Cover typically only protects against ranged attacks, but in some situations may help block a hand-to-hand attack. If you shoot while in cover, you are considered out of cover until your next turn. And so you have insignificant cover, which grants an AP bonus of 5, light cover, which is 10, and heavy cover, such as airlock doors, cement beams, and ships, which has damage resistance of 5 and an AP of 20. Since you're going to be out in space, there's some survival rules. You're going to have to worry about things like atmosphere, bleeding, cryosickness, exhaustion, food and water, oxygen, radiation, stim-pack overdose, and extreme temperatures. Each one has its own rules, so make sure you bookmark these pages for easy access, especially since there's no index. Let's say you and your crew have been working hard for the past decade, and now it's time for some R&R. You can make port for some shore leave. Depending on the class of the port will determine how much it costs and how much stress you can expect to recover. I do like this concept very much, but it seems like the only reason why you would ever do this is to recover stress, basically. And yes, health is also included in there because you're going to have to probably make dock in order to heal up some of your wounds, but I kind of wish there was just a little bit more to it than that. Last but not least are the contractors. These are NPCs that you can hire into your crew so long as you have the money to pay them. They come in different varieties too, such as archaeologist, asteroid miner, androids, bodyguard, captain, chaplain, corporate fixer, doctor, engineer, hacker, marine, grunt, and officers, pilots, pioneers, scientists, survival guides, surgeons, teamsters, therapists, and void urchins, whatever that is. And that's really all there is for the player survival guide. At the back of the book, you do have the character sheet, but at the back cover, you have a simplified how to play Mothership. I actually kind of like the old version a little bit better because it just looks better, but I can also see why they've simplified it. It's less distracting, let's just say, which can be very good for certain players. This is something that you definitely want to print out and give to your players, both old and newcomers. So let's take a look at the Shipbreaker's Toolkit. This book is all about ships and how they function, how to build them, upgrades you can install on them, and how ship combat works. Is it absolutely necessary? Not really. I can see this being indispensable if you're doing a longer campaign or sandbox mode and not one of those pre-written adventures. The first thing that you need to know about ships is that they deal mega damage. Normal handheld weapons do not do mega damage, so chances of a person being able to do hull damage using something standard is pretty much non-existent. Ships also deal mega damage, so if you are hit by something attached to a ship, you're going to turn into red paste. Ships also have stats that also serve as their saves. Thrusters, which entails safely maneuvering and accelerating in space. Battle, which entails targeting and attacking other spacecraft in ship-to-ship combat. And Systems, which is the catch-all stat. This governs your ship's sensors, computers, maintenance, and other subsystems. You'll have to keep track of fuel for your ship because this actually determines how far your ship can travel in system. Interplanetary trips can take anywhere from a few weeks to reach a nearby planet to several years to reach the edge of the system. These trips are made via the ship's thrusters at a cost of 1 unit of fuel for every month of space travel. Fuel costs are paid up front once the destination for the trip has been decided, and it costs 1 fuel to change course. Fuel is also used in ship-to-ship combat, which we'll see a little bit later. Likewise, interstellar travel costs 1 warp drive. These are expensive, so plan accordingly. Before a ship can enter hyperspace, it must first travel to a jump point, a safe distance away from neighboring planets or space stations. It usually takes 2 weeks to reach a jump point from which the ship can then safely enter hyperspace. By the way, your PCs will definitely need to enter cryosleep when they enter hyperspace, or they're going to go crazy. In ship-to-ship encounters, your distance is measured in 3 range bands. We have detection range, where ships are within the same star system. Communication is slow, they are typically not at combat risk, and they can detect each other's size and trajectory. There's firing range. Ships are within weeks of each other, they can communicate with some latency and are at risk for combat. And then there's contact range. Ships are within a few days of each other, they can communicate without latency and are at risk for combat and boarding. Each ship round takes anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours depending on how far apart the ships are. After each ship round, time returns to normal while you and the other players plan your next move in anticipation of the next ship round. Ships at contact range only have a few minutes between ship rounds, enough for a few rounds of normal time. Ships at firing range may have anywhere from a few hours to several days between rounds. I would like to say that it would be absolutely nerve-wracking to be in an engagement where the ship is hours away, like the ship rounds are hours away. Like, what do you do in between those rounds? Like, just sit around twiddling your thumbs until it's time to evade? Combat is separated into 3 phases. We have the movement, attack, and morale phases. In the movement phase, the crew decides if they are going to attempt to evade or pursue the other ship. If you evade, you can spend as much fuel as you like, but the minimum spent is based on your range from the enemy ship. If you are attempting to pursue, you spend as much fuel as you like. Whichever side spends the most fuel gets advantage on the thrusters check. A third option is to maintain course. You don't spend any extra fuel, but your enemy gets what they want, whether that is to evade or pursue without having roll. Then again, they may just maintain course too, and you won't even have to worry about them, but let's be honest, you're probably getting blasted out of the sky. At the end of the movement phase, all ships within firing range or closer choose a target and make a battle check. Remember, your ship does have a hull which acts as armor. If the ship ever takes mega damage greater than or equal to its hull in 1 hit, the hull is destroyed and the ship suffers any remaining mega damage. Last but not least is the morale phase. After any ship round where an enemy takes mega damage, they must make a morale check. To make a morale check, roll 1d10. If they roll under their current mega damage, they may send a hail offering a ceasefire and to resume negotiations. Your ship is likely to get damaged over time. In order to repair mega damage and hull from a ship, you'll need to dock at a port. Each major repair costs 1d5 million credits multiplied by the ship's class. Every point of hull or mega damage counts as a separate major repair for cost purposes and can take anywhere from a few months to up to a year. So yeah, take good care of your ship. The book comes with 9 ships and 2 vehicles. These are fully statted out with layouts for each ship, and there's a good variety from fighters to exploration vessels. Surprisingly, there are no rules for creating your own ships like there was in the old player survival guide. So that is really unfortunate, in my opinion. At the back, we do get those same ships with their stats. And on the inside cover, we have the travel costs, fuel costs, refuel and resupply costs, and range and distance, and what those mean. There's also deck plan icons if you use those. So if not, that's kind of like a big chunk of that page that's kind of useless, but oh well. The improvements made in this edition are much needed and very welcome in my opinion. My biggest gripe with the old version was how armor worked. It was just a complete mess and I hated it. It brought combat down to a standstill or a very slow endeavor. They've come up with a completely new solution that I think will help keep the flow of combat fast. I like what they've done to ship combat. It's more streamlined and it's linear. And by linear, I mean that your ship's health is set to 9, and when it gets to 9 or over, that's just it. Your ship is done for. But this is only half of the game. In the next part, I'll be taking a look at all the stuff that are for wardens. That's going to be the Warden's Operation Manual and the Unconfirmed Contacts Reports. So feel free to leave a comment down below. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.